response, saying, moreover, thou knowest also what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me, and what he did to the two captains of the host of Israel, unto Abner, the son of Ner, and to Amasa, the son of Jether, whom he slew and shed the blood of war in peace. Okay, so I don't know if you remember the story or not, but Abner and Amasa had actually taken over as captains of the army. And so Joab, Joab was the captain. Joab was the captain. And so part of that, I say, as far as Abner is concerned, that he did that out of jealousy so that he could be placed back in the rank as captain. I don't know that to be a fact or not, but I'm just thinking about people and the way people are. But so he says, you remember he took innocent blood. So what David was saying to him, it was a time of peace. It wasn't any war going on. But Joab, he made it seem like what he did was a strategy, a military strategy, something that would happen at a time of war. But it was not. He didn't have to kill them. So their blood was innocent. And what David said was that their blood, he killed more righteous men than he was. And when you do that, Numbers says that when you shed innocent blood, you pollute the land. You pollute the land. And so then David was concerned. We know he was a man after God's own heart, but he was also the people's king. He was a people's king. And so he was concerned about the kingdom. And so he said here, I'm in 1 Kings chapter 2. 1 Kings chapter 2, and I am in verse 6. He says, do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his hoar head go down to the grave in peace. So David's getting back. David is saying, hoar head nothing but gray, they're like mine. He's saying, don't let his gray head, don't let it go down in peace. So take care of what he's done. Because of what he did, he didn't have to do. And so he says, but show kindness unto the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be of those that eat at thy table. For so they came to me when I fled because of Absalom, thy brother. And so he said, now you remember those that did wrong and had no mercy, but you remember those also who were kind to me. And I think that's a good thing, Mother, because a lot of times, Madeline, we have short memories when it comes to what people have done for us. Sometimes, we just act like we don't know that people have helped us along the way. And that's what David is saying. He said, he helped me. I was in distress. And he was, because he was running from Absalom. Go over to 2 Samuel, the 15th chapter. Well, I'm sorry, go over to 2 Samuel, the 17th chapter. So he's on the run, and Barzillai, you're on the run, you got people with you. David had people that he was accountable for, and you're worried about their welfare too while you're doing what you do. But God always has, I say, someone that he'll send to help you out. He has someone, he will place someone in your path to give you just what you need when you need it. I thank God for that too. And sometimes we don't even know what we need, but they have it there. and God will bless them to give it to us. And that's what happened here. And this time when he was running from Absalom. Look at verse 25. This says, and Absalom made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab. Okay, you see here, Amasa, that's one of the persons that David is telling Solomon to avenge his death. Joab and, not Abner and Amasa. He said, Absalom made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab, which Amasa was a man's son whose name was Ithra, an Israelite that went in to Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. So Amasa was Joab's cousin. So Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. And it came to pass when David was come to Mahanaim that Shobi, the son of Nahash of Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and Machir, the son of Amiel of Lodabar, and Barzillai, the Gileadite of Rogelim, brought beds and basins and earthen vessels and wheat and barley and flour and parched corn and beans and lentils and parched pulse and honey and butter and sheep and cheese of kine for David and for the people that were with him to eat. For they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. Now, you know, that was God's grace. That was God's grace. For them to be able to see that, because some people can see that you're in need, Sister Jean, and they'll walk right past you. Some people will know, they know that you need help, and they'll keep on moving. I know what I'm talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. But these people, they had grace. They had grace in their lives to show kindness to David. And David is going to remember that on his deathbed. And again, I say it's good when people can remember the good things that were done to them. Now go on over to, do you remember this story? Go over to 2 Samuel and take a look at the 19th verse. Not the 19th verse, the 19th chapter. The 19th chapter, because you remember Barzillai came. He said here in 2 Samuel 19, and I'm looking at the 31st verse. Are you there? 2 Samuel 19 and verse 31. Amen? And Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rogelim and went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over Jordan. Now Barzillai was a very aged man, even 80 years old, and he had provided the king of sustenance while he lay at Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. And the king said unto Barzillai, come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem. And Barzillai said unto the king, how long have I to live that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem? Said, I'm old. I don't have very much long to be here. I am this day of 80 years old, and can I discern between good and evil? Can my servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women? Wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto my lord the king? Thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king, and why should the king recompense me with such a reward? He said, now I'm getting ready to die, but then the people that's coming after me, my people, you see after them. Okay, and that's what he says in the 37th verse. He says, let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I may die in mine own city, and be buried by the grave of my father and of my mother. But behold, thy servant King Ham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. And that's just what David did. So, okay, so now go back over to 1 Kings, the 2nd chapter. 1 Kings chapter 2. So David's saying, here's your agenda. This is what you do. You deal with Joab, because you know what he did to me. You know what he did to Amasa. You know what he did to Abner. So deal with him. Deal with him. But then he said, be kind to Barzillai, but you need to also deal with Shimei. Remember, we talked about that. How that Shimei, let's look at chapter 2, and let's look at verse 8. And behold, thou hast with thee Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite of Bahurim, which cursed me with a grievous curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. Now you would have think, if you remember that story, do you remember how somebody wanted to do something to Shimei for cursing David that day? Do you remember that? Yes. And David said, no, leave him alone. I deserve what I'm getting. Y'all remember that? Yeah, I remember. Because David felt like he was experiencing the discipline of the Lord for what he had done. So he said, no, that's a leave money. You know, he was all contrite and feeling sorry for himself. And so this, you know, I deserve what he's saying. I deserve what he's doing. And so he says, here though, you know, it's coming back up now. David said, no, he's a snake. And so you need to get rid of him. He's a Benjamite. And what does that mean? Him being a Benjamite. Who was a Benjamite? What king? What king? Saul. Saul was a Benjamite. So Shimei's allegiance wasn't to David. Well, we knew that because he came out of the house throwing rocks and cursing him. So his allegiance wasn't to David, his allegiance was to Saul. As a matter of fact, he was related to Saul. And you know, he came out of the house saying, you bloody man, you know, you don't deserve the throne. And so here we know that David, he was acting like he was contrite and everything at that time, but really he kept it in his heart. And said, you need to get rid of him because he doesn't mean you any good, because he really won't be satisfied until somebody from the tribe of Benjamin is on the throne. And so he says, and behold, thou hast with thee Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite of Bahurim, which cursed me with a grievous curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. But he came down to meet me at Jordan, and I swear to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put thee to death with a sword. And that's what he did. Now therefore hold him not guiltless, for thou art a wise man, and knoweth what thou oughtest to do unto him. But his hoar head bring thou down to the grave with blood. And so he gave him instructions, take care of Joab, take care of Shimei. He had already told him, given him the instructions about building the temple. So Solomon had his agenda all laid out. You're now the king, you got stuff to do. You don't have to sit down and wonder what steps you have to take. You got stuff to do. Take care of Joab, take care of Shimei, take care of Barzillai. But then he had to take care of somebody before all of that, and that was his brother, Adonijah. Okay? So David dies. He sleeps with his father. He reigned there in Israel 40 years, 7 years reigned he in Hebron, and 33 years reigned he in Jerusalem. And now Solomon sits on the throne. Solomon now sits on the throne. So Solomon had accepted, Adonijah had tried to score a coup by taking over the throne, but that didn't happen. So if you look at 1 Kings and look at the 53rd, look at 1 Kings chapter 1 and look at the 53rd verse. Well, I'll just start up here to put it in context. I'll start at the 49th verse. Because you remember, he went down to have a feast and was going to crown himself king. Okay, so they're all at the feast, and all of the traders that went with him, along with the other people that supported him. So he had popular support, just like Absalom did. It's just so much like Absalom, and I guess they thought because everybody liked them, that meant they were a shoo-in. But just because people like you doesn't mean you're where you're supposed to be. That doesn't mean that at all. And so in verse 49 it said, and all the guests that were with Adonijah were afraid and rose up and went every man his way. Why were they afraid? Exactly. Okay. And so the word got back to them with Jonathan came. Was it Jonathan? Came to them and said, oh, there's a new king in town. All right. So Adonijah feared because of Solomon, arose and went and caught hold of the horns of the altar. I'm in verse 51. And it was told Solomon, saying, behold, Adonijah feareth King Solomon, for lo, he hath caught hold on the horns of the altar, saying, let King Solomon swear unto me today that he will not slay his servant with the sword. And Solomon said, if he will show himself a worthy man, there shall not a hair of him fall to the earth. But if wickedness shall be found in him, he shall die. So King Solomon sent, and they brought him down from the altar, Adonijah. And he came and bowed himself to King Solomon. And Solomon said unto him, go to thine house. Okay, so bowing, when someone is bowing, then that means that they are submitting. They're submitting. Okay, you know what's up, brother. I'm the king now, so there's nothing else for you to do but get somewhere and sit down. But how many of you know that the devil doesn't sit down just that easy? No, he doesn't. He doesn't sit down just that easy. And this is something that Solomon had to take care of. So the first thing he had to do was to take care of Adonijah. So even though he submitted, we just read there, to the new administration, he knew that Adonijah was deceitful. He knew that he would be ready to strike again at any time. So there was something that he had to do about it. So Adonijah didn't stop. Let's go to chapter 2. And let's look at verse 13. Okay, how many of you remember Abishag? Abishag. Okay, Abishag, if you go back to 1 Kings, let's go back over to 1 Kings and look at chapter 1. Abishag was a Shunammite that was brought in to minister to David. Remember her? And that was because David he couldn't get warm. He couldn't get warm. So they brought in the concubine. Abishag was, more or less a concubine. So they brought her in to try to get some heat into David's body, but there was none to be had. So, but she was there and she was David's. Okay, so now if she was David's, then when David goes off the scene and there's a new king, what happens? Okay, but look at Adonijah. So Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. And she said, cometh thou peaceably? And he said, peaceably. He said, moreover, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And she said, say on. And he said, thou knowest that the kingdom was mine, and that all Israel set their faces on me, that I should reign. Howbeit the kingdom is turned about, and is become my brother. See there, he's saying, the people liked me. The people liked me. Everybody liked me. Howbeit the kingdom is turned about, and it's become my brother's, for it was his from the Lord. So then you know that. You know he was appointed and anointed from the Lord and not by the people. And now I ask one petition of thee, deny me not. And she said unto him, say on. And he said, speak, I pray thee, unto Solomon the king, for he will not say thee nay, that he give me Abishag the Shunammite to wife. Now why you want to go and ask for that woman? That's his last ploy to try to get the kingdom. Because that's a sign to everybody. If you get the concubine, then you're supposed to be in the king's seat. The devil will go. He's not going to give up, y'all. Not going to give up. He's going to keep fighting to the end. He's going to keep fighting to the end. And so I don't know why, Bathsheba was used in that, but she went on to Solomon and she talked to Solomon. She went to Solomon and asked what he wanted. And Solomon said, my God, why are you coming to me with that? You want me to give him the kingdom too? Solomon knew what was up. And he had already been given a heads up by his father. He had already been given a heads up by his father. And so he knew what was going on. And so he knew that Adonijah, Abiathar, you remember the priest, and Joab, they were still united in gaining control of the kingdom. They were still in cahoots with each other. And so let's go on in chapter 2, and let's look at, he was doing pretty good. He had mercy on him. But why you want to do something and write your own death warrant? You were already greedy, and you can't leave well enough alone. Can't leave well enough alone. Then she said, in verse 21, and she said, let Abishag the Shunammite be given to Adonijah, thy brother, to wife. And King Solomon answered and said unto his mother, and why dost thou ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also? For he is mine elder brother, even for him and for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab the son of Zeruiah. There he's saying they are, They still trying to work this thing out. Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, saying, God do so to me and more also, if Adonijah have not spoken this word against his own life. Now therefore, as the Lord liveth, which has established me and set me on the throne of David my father, and who hath made me a house as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death. When? This day. He was doing good. He was doing good if he had just left well enough alone. But when you greedy, deacon, when you greedy, you can't leave well enough alone because you're trying to get everything you can while you can. Trying to get it all. And King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he fell upon him that he died. Okay, and so Solomon didn't stop there. He also removed Abiathar the priest. He removed Abiathar the priest because he went with them. He was a traitor. But he didn't have him killed because he was loyal to David. So he just sent him on into priestly retirement. You just go on somewhere and get somewhere. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to let you live because you did treat my daddy all right. But you're a snake too because you went with him. So you're an opportunist. And I told y'all to watch people who are opportunists. You grab a hold to the shirt tails of people who are going up, and you think because they're going up, you can go up with them. Opportunists. So he wasn't any good for Solomon either. And so he realized then that he had been faithful to David, as I said. Okay, and so now we get to Joab. So Joab was a strategist, and that he was a military man, so he probably had spies all over. And so the spies are telling him it's not looking good for you, brother. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. So when he heard that Adonijah had been put to death, look, in verse 28, the tidings came to Joab, for Joab had turned after Adonijah, though he turned not after Absalom. And Joab fled unto the tabernacle of the Lord and caught hold on the horns of the altar. Okay, because he knows now, okay, if Adonijah is gone, there's really no hope for me. Now, so what does grabbing hold to the horns of the altar symbolize? Somebody tell me real quick. Mercy. It's for mercy. You're begging for mercy. Okay. And so Solomon sent Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, saying, "Go, fall upon him." And Benaiah came to the tabernacle of the Lord and said unto him, "Thus said the king, come forth." In other words, come on out of there now. You let the horns go. Let the horns go and come on out. Thus said the king, come forth. And he said, "Nay, but I will die here." And Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, "Thus said Joab," and thus he answered me. Well, I told him what you said, but he didn't come out. So the king said unto him, "Do as he has said, and fall upon him and bury him." And that's just what he did. So he died there. He said, "The Lord shall return his blood upon his own head, who fell upon two men." And who were the two men? "Who fell upon two men more righteous and better than he, and slew them with the sword. My father David, not knowing thereof, to wit," here are the two men, "Abner, the son of Ner, captain of the host of Israel, and Amasa, the son of Jether, captain of the host of Judah. Their blood shall therefore return upon the head of Joab." And David had already proclaimed a curse upon him when he did that. You know, he said, just let his household just have trouble, always, just to let him have trouble. And so that's what happened. And so Benaiah killed him. Now, okay, so we get to Shimei. He's just cleaning house. And I say, and it just reminds me of when, you know, you get one administration, if we can just think about our presidency, when one administration goes out of office, they clean house. Because they don't know who they got up in there. You can't keep people who had allegiance to the other administration, so they put their own people in there. So he's cleaning house, and he's getting it right for him so that he can administer the way he needs to. So the king sent and called for Shimei, I'm in verse 36, and said unto him, "Build thee a house in Jerusalem." Now, Solomon is a merciful man. I have to give him that. He's a merciful man. But it's the people who trying to think with their own mind, and they end up messing up. So he says, "Build thee a house in Jerusalem and dwell there, and go not thence any whither. For it shall be that on the day thou goest out and passeth over the brook Kidron, thou shalt know for certain that thou shalt surely die. Thy blood shall be upon thy own head." Okay, so Solomon ordered him to move to Jerusalem, build a house there, and stay in the city. He was on a house arrest. Stay, you can't go nowhere. Okay, all right. But the minute you leave, you need to know I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of my word. And so he had, he was good for 3 years, but then he had 2 slaves to run away. He could let them run away. Now look, he could have sent somebody else for him. Because if somebody had told me not to leave, I wouldn't leave. If somebody told me, "Now you better stay, because when the time you leave, you're gonna die," I would have been trying to figure that out. The slaves could have gone. I didn't have to have a slave. Or I would have sent somebody else to get them. I would have stayed right where I was if my life meant that much to me. But the slaves ran away, and he decided to go and bring them back himself. Look at verse 38. "And Shimei said unto the king, The saying is good, as my lord the king has said. So will thy servant do. And Shimei dwelt in Jerusalem many days. And it came to pass at the end of 3 years that 2 of the servants of Shimei ran away unto Achish, son of Micaiah, king of Gath. And they told Shimei, saying, Behold, thy servants be in Gath. And Shimei arose and saddled his ass and went to Gath to Achish to seek his servants. And Shimei went and brought his servants from Gath. And it was told Solomon that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and was come again. And the king sent and called for Shimei and said unto him, Did I not make thee to swear by the Lord and protested unto thee, saying, Know for a certain on the day that thou goest out and walketh abroad any whither that thou shalt surely die? And thou said unto me, you told me you understood what you said, it was good. Why then have thou not kept the oath of the Lord and the commandment that I have charged thee? And so then he ends up killing him. He has Benaiah to kill him. He has Benaiah to kill him. And so now Solomon is ascending to the throne. Okay. So we look at David, Solomon's father. We look at Solomon. We look at David, who was a man of war. You remember, which is why he wasn't allowed to build a temple. But then in contrast to that, his son Solomon was a scholar. Like, you know what? That was my daddy's thing. My thing is sitting down writing these proverbs. You know, it is judging wisely. I don't have to do that by getting blood on my hand. I have to do that by getting blood on my hands. So David, when you look at David's life in contrast to Solomon's, David, you know, he grew up, he was a shepherd, a simple life. But we're going to find out about Solomon. Solomon was extravagant. He was extravagant, and it's going to get him into trouble. So when you're leading an extravagant life, you got to have some way to what's the word? Support. You said support that. You know? So as the king, what we have here, we have taxes. They had taxes too. So you have some way to support that and keep living your extravagant lifestyle. So what we're going to find out is that Solomon was going to tax the people heavily. He was going to tax them heavily. Solomon, David, as a little shepherd boy, you know, he lived an understated lifestyle. You out in the field, don't nobody know about you. You know, Samuel had to even call him in. But Solomon lived the life of a celebrity. You know, the lifestyles of the rich and famous, y'all ever look at that or ever seen that? He would have been on that show because of the lifestyle that he lived. You know, it didn't take him but a few years to build the temple, but it took him more years to build that house that he lived in because of the extravagant lifestyle that he led. And so when David died, the people mourned David because he was the people's king and he was a man after God's own heart. But when Solomon dies, all they're going to say is to the next king, you need to get rid of some of these taxes your daddy put on us. That's all they're going to remember about him. Remember that he had over 700 wives? And people say you had to have a lot of, money to support that. So, you know, is that true? You wouldn't know about that. You don't have 700 wives. That's exactly what he did. And so this was his strategy. So what David did was David went out to fight. He went out to risk his life on the battlefield to defeat those enemies that were around him and to claim those lands for Israel. But Solomon, his approach was, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm not a fighter like my daddy. I'm more like a lover. So what I'm going to do is my strategy is to marry the women from the different nations. And that way, we'll have some type of allegiance, some kind of like a kind of covenant kinda. So if I'm married to Pharaoh's daughter, if I'm married to this one, then you know we got some kind of military allegiance or agreement there that we won't fight like that. But how many of you know that was the beginning? It was the beginning of his downfall. And why would that be the beginning of his downfall? Say again? Okay.
And God also had told
Okay, okay. So this was in the beginning on their when they first came into the land, even on their trek into the land. God had said to them, okay, you're getting ready to go over into a land flowing with milk and honey. You're going to have houses you didn't build. You're going to have vineyards that you didn't plant. You're going to have a good life. But there's only one thing that I ask of you when you get over into that land is don't forget about me. Remember the God that brought you over. And remember that I am the one true and living God. So when you get over there, what I want you to do is I want you to cut down all of the high places. I want you to go through there and see what we're finding out. What we'll find out, though, is that, see, before the temple was built, there were the high places. So Israel needed somewhere to worship, so they worshiped on the high places in the beginning. But the thing about worshiping on the high places is that it's too easy for them to go from worshiping God unto worshiping the idols in the high places. So Israel's thing was this. It was easy for them to look around and to begin to assimilate, begin for them to emulate the nations around them. They always wanted to be like the other nations. And that's a danger when you always want to be like who you're not. That's right. God had already made them unique unto himself. He had sanctified them unto himself to be a people unto him. So you're a holy nation. You're a peculiar people. There's something different about you, and it wasn't anything different because they were so perfect, because we know they weren't. But what was different about them was that they worshiped Jehovah. They worshiped the true God. The God that could call down fire from heaven. A God who never slept, never slumbered. A God who fed them in the wilderness. A God who provided for them every step of the way as they were walking on their journey into Canaan. So that you're different, you're unique, you're peculiar. You don't have to be like them. And I say that to you this morning. You're an original. That's right. You don't have to be like anybody else. That's right. God made you just the way he wanted to make you. And so God purposed that they would have a central place of worship, which is why, he allowed David to come up with the blueprints to the temple. And so he wanted them to have a central place of worship. They had, remember when they had the tabernacle that was transportable, that was able for them to carry from place to place to place. He wanted a central place of worship. But he didn't want them imitating all of the nations around them. He didn't want them imitating them, the high places. So then he wanted that taken care of. And again, he did. Yes, that's exactly, because they're so impressionable. Absolutely impressionable. And so you're exactly right about that. And so in 1 Kings chapter 3, what we're going to do then next Sunday, because I'm going to go ahead and end here. This is a good place to end. Solomon is beginning again. Okay, so he's ascended to the throne and he's getting ready to establish himself. He's getting ready to be known. His celebrity is getting ready to start because he's going to make a name for himself. Because what we find out when we go further is that out of all the things, because he's going to go to Gibeon. He's going to pray there. And he's going to have a vision there. And God's going to tell him, ask me for whatever you want. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Solomon thought about that thing. And Solomon said, Lord, My daddy was a king. I don't really, even though I was raised by my daddy, I don't really know how to come in and out before your people. So you don't have to give me stuff, but if you just give me wisdom, wisdom on how to lead and wisdom on how to go in and out, that would be good enough for me. God was so gracious. God said, you know what? Because you didn't ask for all of that stuff, I'm going to give you wisdom, and I'm going to give you all of that stuff too. And so that's just the God we serve, isn't it? That's just the God we serve. And so we'll pick up there next Sunday. Give the Lord a hand praise, everybody.